Peace out.
60 seconds.
Hello and welcome to the Bleeding Edge. Today's topic is borscht uns, and I have Rifle and Billy the Goat here. Thank you for everybody who's tuning in right now, and we're gonna give a short, brief intermission to play the intro video, and then we're gonna get right into the topics. But thank you everybody for tuning in to listen.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Perfections, ooh, Sin City, Montana, Coke boy, ooh, we run the city, homie tryna keep up, ooh, they going broke, I'll finish your career, ooh, get a rope,
Warning, 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 warning.
dope money, ooh,
That Montega,
in the spot, getting guap, ooh,
that's hard labor.
in the club, popping bottles,
Yeah, we blowing that sour.
hand for the real niggas,
Rest of these niggas cowards.
how you want it,
How you want it?
hands gun or the knife,
Soon as your man see the barrel,
he gon' run for his life,
bullets flying.
bullets flying.
Wow, quite a bit happened between picking the topic for the show last week and now. So I don't know. Maybe it's going to be the same sort of theme, but there was a few events that happened that I wanted to highlight before we get into the actual topic. I'm not sure you guys knew. If you're not sure, I'm not sure if you guys saw. Well, it's pretty impossible to not see. There was a shooting in the Buffalo, New York, I believe, and it was involving a young man. And I'm not sure how there was also. I'm not sure how it relates to the other shooting that was in the subway in New York City, but it's kind of in the news right now, and I just wanted to know if you guys knew about it because it's pretty deadly. Apparently, 10 people were killed, and it was streamed online or something like that, or on Twitch. And we kind of talk about technology and stuff on the show here. Yeah. Did you hear about it, Wind?
Nope.
Hey,
I didn't
JR.
hear about nothing.
I've heard about it. I don't know much about it. Sorry, I'm eating my dinner.
I don't know. I don't know much about it either. I heard it was heard the guy. I saw a picture of the the photo of the alleged attacker. He seemed kind of like, it reminded me of what's the guy's name? The pink haired dude that was in Aurora, Colorado. The Aurora, Colorado guy.
Well, apparently this freak show put out a manifesto, and he wasn't too happy. He didn't like the Small Hat tribe and some other people. And that's, of course, the media is taking that and running with it. And
They make mountains out of molehills or mountains out of freaking
Hey, Wind.
dirt mounds.
they're probably clamoring for gun control as usual. And and then you said Buffalo, and Buffalo, I think, aside from New York City itself, is probably the second most dangerous city in the state of New York, and people get capped and murdered all the time there. But
I'm not sure if he was an original resident or if he traveled to Buffalo.
well, that's a weird place to go. But yeah, I mean, we're not sure. But the thing is, like, people get capped and killed and murdered in different ways all the time in Buffalo, and they never, the country doesn't hear about that. It's only when a particular type of person does something like that. And I'm not saying that the people who got taken out were unimportant or anything like that. And I certainly don't condone what that freak show did, but at the same time, you got to pay attention to like what they ignore and what they throw at your face all the time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how
Basically what it
those
is.
two, between the Aurora shooting and this guy, it starts out as like a intellectual thing, or a manifest. Like he obviously can read and write, he's literate, but then it sort of evolves into a mental health thing, and then you kind of, that's when you see people who had like the savior victim people come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
he's so misunderstood, this, that, and the other," and he's
Motherfucker, that dog or a dog gonna get him some help.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest problems in this country is you got all these
late reaction
mentally ill motherfuckers running around free, getting no treatment, no documentation that, hey, this guy's a little. See, when you go to buy a gun, I know probably Wind has done this once or twice, but they run you through a system called the NICS. And what that does is that searches to see if you're a felon who shouldn't even have a fucking gun, but it also is supposed to search to see if you are mentally ill, and therefore they won't issue you a gun. Now, if you're mentally ill and no one makes like a legitimate, and we're not talking about like they used to a long time ago in this country, someone could point at you and say you're a crazy man. They'd throw you in a straitjacket and lock you up for a while in one of these asylums, but and you'd be perfectly healthy and stuff, and still that would happen to you. But I'm not saying that should happen, but I'm saying like some of these freak shows need to be documented and like reported to people.
The thing is, it's not so much the documentation. I think some of these people just need help.
They do.
I mean, the thing is, like, you can't fix everybody by locking them up
No.
into a freaking psych ward because you think they got a problem. They first thing they have to want to have help. They have to basically. The reason I say help me help you, make this make sense to me, is because sometimes not only the person I need his help helping me understand it. Sometimes some people might need help, like said, if I help try to convince me, and I'm more than willing to help, because maybe there's another side that I'm not seeing that you're not seeing. Two blind people can't get pissed all done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's like almost so that it's a world full of different perspectives, and I think like a lot of these shootings happen and is blamed on racial.
Well, that's where I was going with the part. They're saying he's a white supremacist. I mean, I'm just going to flat out say that that's what they're saying. He might have been. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to like comment, but I just find it weird that they give this as much coverage as they do, but it's kind of like Chicago. Chicago's a nasty city, but you don't hear about all the murders and stuff that go on there, and I guess, mass shootings and gang violence in these places.
And ignorance, just the plain out.
They want you to be ignorant too.
Look, last week I stayed in Chicago. I stayed in Chicago, at the Consignee, and I heard about somebody getting jumped in Chicago, and it's like basically but gunshots are a freaking lullaby, and they have one of the strictest gun laws. Gunshots are like freaking lullaby music.
Don't they still celebrate when they have celebrations like New Year's or something?
They shoot guns off in the air. Yeah. What they fail to realize is what gravity's a maiden that is the most devious. What goes up must come down.
Yeah, that's what they do in the Middle East too. Same thing, like weddings and shit. They just raise their AKs up and just start shooting in the air.
It's been a trend for. Sorry, Billy. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna. The point about these people need help. As nice as that sounds, realistically, it's not very viable.
These people are not going to get help because first things foremost, the mental health system is behind the curb by at least a decade, by at least decades, at least
Yeah,
2 decades. It's
well,
probably behind the curb at least 50 years.
yeah. But even if it wasn't
Right.
behind, that's still like take a percentage wise out of 100, only maybe 1% might make some difference. Never mind whether or not that's going to be a reformed, functional citizen is another
Yeah.
question.
But the thing is, it's not only the mental health agency. First things foremost, the reason why people don't get help is because they don't want to give up their firearms. You
Well,
know?
that's partly it. I mean, it might be possible. The actions that took place or that went down, in some way, you could argue, might be their form for this individual, their form of like catharsis or medication to make them
Yeah.
feel
It,
better.
it's
So
fueled by that the supremacy, the supreme, like I don't think I think like white supremacy gets slapped on these criminals, but it's just funny because like in any supreme, I like if you talk about civilizations like rising to higher tiers, higher like ways of thinking, higher dimensions, higher realities and stuff, or discovering new things. It's supposed to be like a process of coming to understand and not necessarily like exterminating, but just like thinking of new ways of I don't know, I guess like spending and conserving energy. And then like for it's all now in this this millennia, like supremacy is like related to eradicating everything else, which it doesn't it kind of makes sense if you it kind of doesn't make sense if you just get rid of everything else, then how are you the best? It's like you're
the
just
idea
the
of
only thing that's there.
stepping
The
on,
problem with getting, yeah, like I said, and basically getting rid of everything else, eventually you are going to get rid of everything else. What then? What else? What do you have left?
For real, yeah. With no variety, shit's boring. Let's just be honest.
and it doesn't address what's really going on. I mean, you can slap on any kind of label. It's lazy thinking. It's lazy rationalizing. If
Welcome to the 21st
and
century.
be like, well, no pun intended by saying gun, but to just whack on a supremacist label or who hurt you kind of label or whatever.
Oh
That's
boy.
almost besides the point.
I blame the news media.
What has led up to this individual becoming the way they are is more closer to what matters. That needs to
Because
be
nobody wants to do the legwork. Nobody wants to figure out what brought this person to this point, because
well, because it's too
easy.
hard. This is where it goes back to your point where you're saying like there is a lack in the mental health field of understanding and development. They're behind their times. So even if people try to unpack what's going on, they don't really know what they're dealing with. So
They don't have, first things foremost, without incentive to do so, nobody's going to want to be a guinea. Nobody is going to want to help to advance anything. And mental health is another thing that removes any and all incentive to advance it.
one of the hurdles is
Basically
people
to
speculate.
Yo,
And-
I
man,
want to let me finish for a second, please.
Mhm.
I mean, I know I have spaces in between from where I talk, but it's formulating the next sentence. It's all like I said, it's almost like mental health is basically propelling an agenda. It's not meant like mental health in certain Western countries. It's not meant for you to get better. It's not meant for you to get better in all intents and purposes. It's meant for you to stay sick, stay under their thumb.
So it's like welfare then.
Exactly. It's like the reverse welfare, but instead you're shelling out money and you're not receiving a paycheck.
Yeah, I
They're
agree.
receiving a paycheck.
You got feminism that have undermined what mental health really should be for. They're abusing it's a privileged position, and it's being abused from within and undermined. So not only are they not treating their patients or clients, but they like you say, yeah, they're actually intentionally making it worse for them.
Right. And
Yeah,
it's
they're
like
brainwashing them.
nobody wants to get locked up in a psych ward.
It's
And
kind of like with the whole Common Core math and like the
exactly.
things that the education system being everybody goes through the same process, and so
But
there's no way of like really weeding out anybody. There's all this anxiety behind passing and not
There's
failing and
there's the two
doing
types
something
there's
with your
two types
life
of people.
and being popular.
There's two types of
And it
people.
never stops either. I mean, it goes
Yeah.
on
Right.
past high school, past college, past any form of education. And I think there's all the rates that we used to see in the past are just dropping, like graduation, birth rate, uh, the living past a certain point without self-deleting. All the statistics are like falling down and down and down. So it's almost like when you try to reach out and help somebody now, you're getting like a snapshot from the past of what it is like the future. The person who they are now is too late to help. But you always can see where the person should have gotten, where a person should have improved or perhaps acted appropriately or done better. So it's just funny because it makes it time just seems to be moving so quickly when it comes to these like different news stories and stuff that pop up. I know you had like manosphere content creators that have passed since like MGTOW and the red pill were kind of being pushed slowly being pushed into the mainstream, and it's sad because you want to like if they saw what was happening now, they would probably. I wonder if they would reevaluate and say like, is it really worth like helping these people or facilitating these types of discussions? And are they really helping men to become better and helping their mental health and helping them to move on and lead better lives and increase the welfare of people, and would enlighten people or bring people to and not get people to think that they're in a supreme philosophy where they need to exterminate all other forms of simpery or cuckitude or something like that, because that's what you get a lot of times. And the healthy form of it now that you see is where people say, oh, that's a man doing something with his own life, let him do what he needs to do. And then so how do you approach that when it comes to a guy like this? Maybe you just say, oh, he never was like a part of any philosophy in the first place. He's a guy who slipped through the cracks. And that's what a lot of people will say. He
Well,
fell off the wagon. He didn't have a good parents. He didn't have, like you said, he was who hurt him. He must not have gotten laid, or he must not have done the right adult, hit the right appropriate milestones and stuff in development. That's what happened.
yeah, there's a lot of speculating sort of areas that not just this conversation, but the situation can be approached from, and they are all typically worth exploring to some degree. But when it comes to like, so what's the bottom line here?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to help an individual, especially inside their own kind of head, then we have to sort of, to some degree, negate what happens externally, like i.e. who hurt him. It almost doesn't matter who hurt him. The point is that somewhere he got hurt. And
that entire phrase, Billy, that "who hurt you" is just to derail a conversation. It doesn't really mean anything.
Well, it's not like you see an Abercrombie and Fitch ad or where a guy is like just obviously just got broken up with. He's like, they have to be a heartthrob. They have to be.
They ask that question. They don't care. Like you were just kind of getting. They don't care that someone hurt you or anything like that. It's just a way to try to win an argument somehow.
Well,
Based
I'm
on
not trying to derail the conversation
Yeah.
by using
Yes.
it as an example. The point I was trying to make is that whatever his circumstances, never mind if it's who hurt him or poverty or whatever's led him to this point in life, it does matter, but it almost doesn't matter because it's more of a case of like the failure is how this individual struggled to cope with whatever circumstances it is, and they felt to some degree that this outcome is the end result, and again for another bunch of reasons, either a case of a sense of vindication, a sense of justice, a sense of regaining control of their life. So we need to kind of, if we were to help this person, explore where it is they are struggling, where it is their emotions are based, and so it kind of, although we look at the external circumstances, we will end up, if you're going to help someone, you're going to have to sort of bring it inwards to this individual and into their world. And so we're kind of like peeling back the onion layers, or more horrifically described, probably like pulling out the skeletons from their closet, which most people would find uncomfortable anyway. You know, to be completely exposed, because how you gonna fix a situation or any problem if you don't expose the problem first?
And there's also people coming out to use this situation to shield you from seeing yourself against your best interests, where it's like there's so many of the ways of thinking that are expressed during times like this, where it's like a tragedy happens and the real truth will never, or not even a real truth, but the one part of what might be interesting that led to this person gets glossed over, and that's also going on in your life, or that's something that's happening to a friend of yours or a loved one, and then that's overlooked. And
Quick
instead
question.
it becomes like a racial or gender based thing, and it's like it's more ubiquitous. Like somebody who's not a white man could be going through that, but it's just they're not going to get the same help because this whole situation has been misconstrued and misguided and turned into a racial issue.
A quick question: is this shooter in custody, or are they dead?
Usually, yeah, that's a good question. Let me look it up while you're
Because if
asking.
he's dead, then there is no helping.
They usually are dead, but they don't usually take him alive. And then magically, there's always a manifesto. But let me check it out. Okay.
Yeah, I think he is. They put I see like pictures of him in the hospital gown and everything. I said they say he might have planned the attack months ago, and he's being taken into custody. What's his name? Oh, I got it. Peyton Gendron. Oh yeah, like not from Buffalo, by the way.
Emo kids.
Yeah. It says he was barefoot masked, wearing a paper smock. Told the judge he understood the charge against him and was not guilty. So yeah, he was brought into custody and he pleaded not guilty. And yeah, it's just like yeah, he kind of just, like I said, he kind of just reminds me of the Aurora shooting, but the Aurora, or the Dark Knight shooter, because it's just I don't know, but right now it's just like we don't know that much about him. But the more that comes out, I think it's gonna kind of it just seems so, I don't know, just seems so similar to all the ones that have happened in the past. I think as these happen, it's just how can they not all just fit a pattern? And it's weird because they're all trying to do this to be noticed, but the more that it happens, the more they just like become a statistic of, like what you said, rifle. It's like these kinds of things happen all the time, and the media only picks up certain stories, and they don't tell you the full story. And then they also ignore all the other stories that are happening because they have a end goal at the end of the day. It's not just to like sell the news; it's to sell a story and scariness and fear, a fear campaign.
The news wasn't always like that, you know. If you look in history, the news actually at one point was informative, showed advancements in technology, showed advancements in science, medical science. They used to basically say this is what's going on locally. These are the advancements. The thing is, they want to have news 24/7, but they don't have enough bad news to fill the bracket. They don't believe in they don't believe in telling the truth and the whole truth. They don't believe in getting both sides of the story. They go to whoever signs their paycheck. And quite frankly, people who are signing their paycheck are doing everything to overthrow whatever constitution. You know, it doesn't have to be American Constitution. It could be the British Constitution. It could be the Australian. And look, if you look at Australia right now, they don't have any firearms. They're prime candidates. They're prime for the picking. You know.
Yeah. Well, all the governments are corrupt, and the media is like supposed to be that in between that shows you not only like the good aspects of, like what you said, the science advancements, but also kind of like highlight the things that are happening as the checks and balances and the power dynamics change. And like World War and foreign war American journalism was kind of like showing you a little bit, you got a glimpse of the power dynamic. And like that was when it was interesting to be into politics and news, because it wasn't so highly like polarized and close to home. I mean, technically it was, but it was juxtaposed on a foreign, like with like a foreign stuff.
After World War II, we got a big head. You know, we got a big head, really big. We got big air. We got air pumped up our behinds, and it went straight to their brains. You know, we started thinking that we could be the world police, you know, and that doesn't, and the problem is that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. It's not only unsustainable, it's detrimental. It's detrimental. Let the people who are having a disagreement fight it out, you know, because it's just basically another change of power. Work with the winner, because it's not your problem, not your banana, not your zoo, not your freaking key to the freaking cages. It's somebody else's problem. Unless a world war comes and we have to get involved or we get attacked, we should not be over anywhere helping anybody at this point. We just got out of a debacle, out of a botched withdrawal. Yep. What do we look like trying to help people? What do we look like trying to help somebody? We can't even, our citizens are homeless. Our veterans are homeless. You know, we got homeless people living on the street. Come on. And we're tearing down, and the irony is we're tearing down houses. That's the irony about it.
Well, I mean, does anyone know what when we get to the crux of this current event, before, like, as we're like kind of transitioning, it's like what exactly would we, if you learned anything from this, or if there's any like call to action from seeing something like this, or any overall conclusion from watching the way that people reacted. It's like people are jumping faster and faster to
They're
the
trying
like
to be the
one-dimensional
first.
ways of like, oh, this. It's like we've created so many boxes that
They're
now it's
they're
just every time something
trying.
happens, immediately have to throw it into a box. So,
Anybody else want to sum it up before I do?
Oh, you go right ahead, man.
yeah, we're gonna go.
You see it in the comment section of YouTube all the time. They're trying to be first to the next biggest thing. And so instead of sitting back and watching every time that somebody is first get ran through the freaking grinder, they want to jump blind. They jump blindly into a doorway, only to get chewed up by gears. They want to be first to get chewed up, either first to sink or first to swim. You know, they're
Yeah,
literally.
I mean, in this, like you're talking about all of these like reaction videos on YouTube with to like political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, it's just everything is this spelling the end of humanity, and it's kind of like this like it's weird because yeah, it's a such low effort
They can't see their. They
YouTubers.
can't see
Like
their
it's like
hand.
they're it's like well, it's not like they're replacing the media industrial complex. They're just like they're mimicking it for clicks and views instead of just doing the content that is their core and what they're known for.
Right, and it's like it's that they're basically they can't see their hand in front of despite it being in front of their face. You know, they cannot see their hand despite it being in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
They've got because they've got blinders.
Because I'm noticing that this is what kind of creates this. This is what adds it. This is what creates the trend. Is that there's people that follow every single thing on the news, and it scares them into kind of pursuing alternative media. And the alternative media is through the internet, which is completely catered to their algorithm, and it tells them everything that they need to know in order to make a quick decision. It doesn't appease them really. It just kind of feeds into their delusion. And then they create more content or they create more search algorithm buckets to jump into or for any agency to drop them into if they're getting too, rowdy or something, or getting too not rowdy, but if they're just asking too many questions, and it just like leads them down a rabbit hole. And it's just like I feel like in order to jump down a rabbit hole, which is kind of a common thing in the bleeding edge, you have to have some sort of like awareness of what's happening around you to make sure it's like appropriate for you to jump into it, and at what angle you jump into it, whether it be head first or pencil dive or something. So it's kind of like people are like just diving head first into these situations with no awareness, and then they see, and like it's funny too because you see like the word vitriol is used a lot in regards to social media, especially when it comes to men posting content. Women never post vitriol unless like it's a woman on woman thing and it's fat shaming or something like that, or it's it's a famous TV star like Roseanne saying something just a little racy, then it's vitriol. But it's like that word means nothing anymore, even because it's being used to describe anything from a casual joke to wishing death on somebody or wishing an attack would happen or anything like that. And so there's no real gauge to see exactly is this something that I do need to dive headfirst into and address, or is it something that is somebody else somewhere blew out of proportion and now it's snowballed out into now this is like a huge issue. It's just like one of those things that I noticed. And then yeah, like online has so many different conspiracies and so many different things that you can use to sort of paint a like a scarier picture. Like, oh, this shooting happened on, you know, 05/14/22, and you can like look up those numbers and it'll have there's some sort of like demonic association with those numbers or something, and then that then is like creates fervor in the Christian community that they need to like fight against this kind of stuff. And it's just everybody has their opinion and no one knows how to listen to each other about it. Yeah, and everyone's trying to like shout down each other instead of actually just talking it out civilly.
Thing is, nobody knows how to talk civilly. Everybody's nose has been in those smartphones and those smart screens for so long that they don't know how to interact with human beings anymore. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And the news, all the news is working just fine. All the news's job is to give enough to keep them going for the carrot. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can go, like I said, you can go ahead if you want to stop them, but it's just enough to keep them going to the carrot for the carrot, and basically keep them just stupid enough to just take another route so they can, like, literally, you could literally hit direct traffic through the evening news. You know, oh, this area is going to be closed. This area is going to be closed. This area is going to be closed, but this is the only route. This is the only authorized route you can take. What, you know? You could literally shut down. You could literally shut down a roadway to move whatever sensitive equipment that you need to further the agenda, or whatever agenda. If there was an agenda, who knows? If there is an agenda, you could literally, through the morning news, you could direct traffic. So, you won't take a risk and plow through them barriers? I think not. Because, you know, it's what it is. Like I said, whoever could go next.
Yeah, it's hard to really figure out. It's hard for people to orient themselves and then to become studied and then be able to help somebody else through a situation. It's typically everybody's going through a situation together. But then it's like factions start to form and don't talk to this person, don't associate, you know, and then they just kind of feed they feed into these like cult like ways of thinking, and this is what like creates monsters out of just seemingly random decent people, which obviously the people that do these crimes are not decent people. They're people who are hiding amongst the well-meaning and well-intentioned people waiting to strike. But it's just something you notice, and yeah, just I mean, I guess that's that topic. But yeah, kind of transitioning though, shifting gears. I wanted to get more into this topic of like the birth rate and stuff, because this event did is really just overshadow the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and like I think where Wynn was getting at with that whole media tangent with the shooting stuff is like they really want to like direct you away from anything that's happening that's important, you know. And it's like a few people getting shot, and this one guy going on the rampage it's important, but it's also like a dime a dozen nowadays, whereas the legal decisions that are being passed and stuff under our nose all the time, way more important. They just kind of get glossed over.
Yeah, true.
So it's just like I mean it's more or less like, hey guys, check this out. This is what they're trying to pass. This is the excuse that they're using in order to sort of slip this thing under our noses. So it's kind of like Yeah. What's more important? I think that the declining birth rate is important, and it feeds directly into the lack of available resources, because your parents can't really help you as much, through specific like generational things, that you would go through as a man, especially if you have the means to like acquire your own self-defense, your own home, money, status, just developing yourself, improving yourself. They can encourage you, but then they're not going to be around for the majority of your life, and neither are your kids or your um, like your childhood friends, if you're not lucky enough to keep them around, and friends that you make later in life. So it's really just like people who are in your immediate surroundings and in your years of matriculating and graduating and working, your coworkers and stuff like that. Those people are kind of the only people that see the real you, unless you have some like wickedly vibrant social life where you like climb strata of society in different leaps and bounds and talk to a poor man one day and a rich man the next. It's kind of hard to like use the world as a therapy group if the population is rapidly shrinking and no new people are being born to process these ideas with. Yeah, there's a kind of a dire depiction of it, but in reality, it's a problem that's only going to get worse for future generations as this goes on. So, I mean, is that the case? Is it that this overturning is going to result in a lower birth rate, kind of like what Wind and I talked about in the past, or is it going to lead to? Is it kind of a stubborn way of the administration saying, "All right, guys, you guys have fought the gender battle for a few decades, 50 years. It's just time now. It's time to kiss and make up." What are your thoughts? Does anybody have a thoughts or no? Or anybody have anything that they think is going on
with the abortion issue?
Well,
yes. As Rollo Tomasi talked about last week around the same time while we were doing the Bleeding Edge, and I believe this for a long time since I first learned about what hypergamy was, but abortion is an expression of hypergamy. At the end of the day, it basically is an easy way out for women to make terrible, bad choices, and they can get out of it just like that. At the snap of their fingers, they're absolved of their terrible decisions. And so now they don't have to be responsible. They don't have to, and we're seeing this as red pill men. We're seeing the results of this, many years of this, where women don't have to make good choices anymore. They just have to keep doing what they're doing, right? Bang every Chad that they can possibly get their hands on, and you're not really worry about getting married until their SMV starts to drop, and then they're starting to think about the long term, rather than turn into one of these old ladies. At least some of them do end up turning into these 50-year-old thoughts asking where the good men went. But it's just irresponsible. It's not hard to I mean, and even us as guys, I mean, how many of you guys have children that you're not taking care of? I don't think any of us here. Billy has his kid. I don't even have children, and that's been, because I've wrapped it up.
Yeah,
I've been responsible because I don't want to have a child with a woman who wouldn't want to.
Yeah, there's no equivalent for hypergamy for men. Just because you wrap your junk up doesn't mean that you're waiting on a. That's what's.
I don't want to have
who hurt
child
you comes
with
in because It's like, oh, you're trying to protect yourself from me. Meanwhile, the risks are so much more, not even the risks, but like the lack of accountability is so much higher when it comes to what women have access to, what they can, how they can switch, like you said,
There's so
switch
many
the
other
power.
forms of birth control besides aborting the kid that yeah. And women have women have an easier time with abstinence far more than men do. I mean, men want to knock that shit out.
They want to bang everything.
You know, they want to get it on. But it's just it's a matter of responsibility, and of course, we all know as red pill men, we know that most women are, they don't want to be responsible. It's one of those things in their mind they shouldn't have to. However much sense that makes to like someone who operates with logic, but it's laziness too. Laziness coupled with irresponsibility and not giving a shit. Because I mean, they're sitting here having the debate like, oh, it's an embryo, although, or they'll talk about, well, what about EPAR? Well, most pregnancies from EPAR, those are extremely, extremely rare. Like microscopic in the grand scheme of things. Most abortions, most terminations like that are strictly just birth control. They just don't want to have the kid, so they I'll just abort it. And it's not usually at the embryo stage either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all horseshit. And then them throwing a fit about Roe versus Wade, they don't even know what that means. Because it's not like, okay, abortion is banned just because Roe versus Wade gets overturned.
It's overturned.
It goes to the states, then the states decide. So, and believe it or not, you as an individual have a lot more power to decide, what happens with your state government as opposed to the federal government. Just saying, you have a lot more control over that. Your local and state are where you have a lot of more power as a voter or as a citizen. And I'm just talking about the United States, obviously, since it's a U.S. issue. I know Billy's not from here, but
is really just, people are going to be held more, are going to be given, when it comes to, especially when it comes to contraception, they're going to be like given more responsibility than they are now. Like you said, when it's a federal thing, you can't stop anything. You can't make your own decisions at a state level, and you're basically restricted to whatever it is the federal law entails. It's just like if you were to like cross state lines or something, or if you get clocked in one county for speeding, and then you go to the next county, you could easily get, if you could someone get that overturned because of the state laws and the jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's true.
But so it's just like that is becoming more, and then all the left does is talk about how they want to participate more and they want more of a decision and more of a voice. But when this kind of stuff happens, like Roe v. Wade being overturned and this decision going to the states, you hear them moaning now, and now it's a problem because they're going to have to put in more work in order to get the lifestyle that they want, as opposed to just having the federal government take care of all of the, and it's like, I'm not sure when it comes to like these health violations, if it's similar health regulations, if it's similar to like when the United States declares war, where it's like the president is just like a figurehead and the Supreme Court is just kind of useless, and it's mostly the Senate and the House that decide whether or not that this is going to be passed into law or something, or passed into fruition, brought into fruition. But it's weird to see that they're turning it in on they're really just saying that this is like, the fact that some people are like nonchalant, not even cheering this on, but just kind of observing it. And like what you said, the red pill man that I've been just watching this for a while, it's like, what are we supposed to do? It's actually like, it's more of a reason to bridge the divide and sort of start to not only take accountability, but try to learn maybe the perspective of what a man has to go through nowadays.
Yeah. Well, as a red pill man, we really need to take out our magnifying glass and look at this. The just expression of hypergamy is so blatant because if you really think about it, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but them not being able to get abortion as birth control means that they have to choose a guy to have a baby with who doesn't necessarily give them tingles. And they have to look at the long term instead of, you know, the Chad, the fun guy that they're hot for. So now they hate that idea. I mean, let's analyze it a little bit further. When you think about it, what is feminism in and of itself? Not just, you know, them women wanting control. What do they really want control?
Well, the
of?
ideology of feminism is rooted in our culture. So just look at our culture.
Beyond that, when you break it down, when you just really break it down, what is it? It's hypergamy. Why do you think these walruses with pink hair and shit are screaming for feminism? At the end of the day, they want Chad. They think that the walrus with a job that, you know, would typically be a job that a man would have, that should make them more attractive. Like, you know, why do you think they're always talking about being a CEO of something, right? They think because women themselves are attracted to men who are in powerful positions, so they're projecting that to where they think a man should be. And when I say a man, I'm talking about the type of men that they really want should be attracted to that. So feminism in and of itself is just simply the fight for them to have control and for ultimately hypergamy. If you really sit down and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, the hot women don't need feminism in order to get a man that they want.
That's why you rarely see like hot women at these rallies, like actual hot women.
Unless they're under the gun of like litigation is the only time they'd use female empowerment.
Or they benefit from it, like monetarily, like they're one of those, like a content creator, for instance. Then you might see them there. But typically it's these like sub 5 like women with weird colored hair and problem glasses.
So they would be pro abortion, pro feminist. Whatever the feminist, because the thing feminists take on abortion is going to change, I think, or it's just going to be like as this kind of moves down the line of down from the federal area to the state area, you're going to see like more schisms, more factions forming in feminist ranks.
Well, there already are. There's several schisms and factions already out there. It's kind of funny.
There's LGBTQ now because
there's the trannies that think they're women, and then what do they call the actual women? TERFs or something. Yeah, I think that's what.
Then there's like the male feminists too, which is like, I wonder what I mean. Primarily, they're all. I heard from a guy the other day. He was like, I just think it should be a woman's right to choose, and it should always be.
But they've already made choices. This is one thing I've always harped on. So number one, they made a choice to be sexually active. They made a choice, and 99.99% of the time, they made the choice of who they're going to be sexually active with. They made a choice whether or not to use protection and or, you know, at morning after pill or what have you. So those are 3 choices that they've already made before a baby was ever even, you know, an afterthought. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about by pro-choice.
BRP. I think that's BRP, right?
Yeah, I got one more thing to point out, and then I'll shut up because I've been kind of talking too much, and these other guys have been quiet. But I want to point out another thing that we've probably all seen and have been thinking, but haven't said out loud. But I mean, these are these same people. These are the same motherfuckers that were telling us to get the jab, that wanted to force us, mandate us to get the jab. And now they're saying my body, my choice, which I find to be fucking hilarious.
That is ironic, right? Yeah. Yeah, Billy, Wind, do you want to chime in? Wind. Yeah, I don't
You
know.
guys are covering it pretty well, man. Lots of great points are being made,
Mhm.
and it's fun.
B Oversphere, is that black and red pill philosophy potentially? It doesn't look like it in the photo, so I'm like wondering what's going on. Let's see. I'll let them all talk. So yeah, anybody else got anything to say?
Oversphere, you're welcome to come on here, dude.
Yeah, I want
I've just been on a rant and raving and tirade. Just chime in, man.
Hey, sometimes you gotta go on a tirade. It's
But
just
this,
you gotta
well,
keep it.
yeah,
Sometimes
this
you have to
is
keep
something I feel
it.
strongly about.
You
That's
know,
probably why I'm ranting
when
and
people
raving.
listen and then you say something like a little bit, they'll immediately think that you're talking about them as opposed to just thinking about it like critically. So we have to be careful not to scare people off with too much truth bombs. We gotta
No.
it's gotta be like administered in a
Yeah.
jab. It's gotta be like they gotta be immunized to take the real red pill, or also
Yeah.
have adverse side effects.
So Oversphere, man, welcome to the show. You got anything to add, brother?
Yeah, go ahead. He said in the private chat he was going to let everybody talk, but I think we all got.
I think we're pretty well. Yeah.
If Adam from the Bible had the mentality of my body, my choice, then he wouldn't have made Eve from the rib.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and it's. I think there's been a huge feminism and religion have got to make ends meet. You know, I think that they're both kind of weakening as time goes on, and I think that they'd be the strongest together. A lot of these places.
No. I want feminism to be eradicated, bro. Forget that shit. And feminism is a religion. I'll also say that.
It is, and so is like some forms of like male supremacy.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so I think like
higher end of
I think most of the population is ready to fall into that, like not the metaverse, but just like we want to know where all of the crazy people are at. We would like to know. Please let us know.
In the field of sort of crowd psychology, it is suggested that as people descend further into uncertainty, chaos, they fail to understand sciences. So in a sense, they're failing to process reality around them. That they can't integrate with reality. Then there is a natural propensity to revert back to religious ideologies and ways of behaving. So you'll start seeing rituals and other religious sort of practices being practiced or exercised.
Like I don't know, using their yeast to make shit. I don't know if you would call that food, but like putting that in their yeast into food, like what? Or making art with their fucking period blood.
I hear something.
Yeah, all sorts of. Yeah, I've been hearing more and more of period blood. Drinking it, watering your plants with it, using it as face, drawing your third eye on your forehead with it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Wait, are we talking about human fluids or something like that?
Yes.
I missed that.
We've gone on that tangent.
Yeah, let's not. Let's keep When what do you got to say, man? Yeah, Oversphere's Mike's broke, but he is his original channel, Black and Red Pill Philosophy. Go ahead, check him out. Thank you for showing up, though. By the way, appreciate you, man. You're always welcome anytime. He's gonna once he gets his mic working, he'll be contributing to the panel too. He's got some really interesting ideas, and I'm sure he can weigh in on all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All this is nothing more than.
He also hates the pasta sauce guy. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
I'll
he's
give you guys an example. I'm going to put this in the private chat here. This is an example of feminists and feminism and what it's. There you go.
Along with the religious increase to compensate for the lack of realistic understanding, you'll also see a rise in spirituality. So watch out for things like that.
You should put that on the fucking screen there. Yeah.
Wait, did I put it on the screen?
No,
on accident?
you should. You should.
Oh, okay. I was like, I didn't want to. This picture is not going to upset anyone.
Those are your feminists right there, guys.
All right, I'm uploading it to the brand. I don't know. We might use it in the future as well to troll somebody.
But the thing is like, we're going.
How they start to look more and more like men as they start to embrace a feminist ideology. They start to look more and more like guys.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was saying is like, we're going backwards into a cycle. You know.
That's pretty funny right there.
Oh well, we're going backwards.
That's totally kosher. I think that's and I embrace those people. Those people are, they have a home. They can watch the show too. It's covered up. I mean, they're living
Oh shit!
Much love to those people.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're wonderful human beings.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Everybody at Starbucks loves them.
Yes.
There isn't enough Gorilla Glue.
The Gorilla Glue girl.
I don't think there's enough booze. Is probably a better saying.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like everybody that has the child. Like I was like, okay, so I'm kind of like interested in like medieval history, and they didn't have any form of really of contraception other than celibacy and maybe the occasional lambskin. So, but they also had like a lower population than we have now, but also they died faster.
Right.
So it's just like everything is being tipsy over. It's like more people can be born and less people can be less people, die of natural causes. But we're not even getting any smarter as people. I'm not talking about like other countries. I'm mainly just talking about America. But it's like, and maybe somewhat a Western context. But I just am I'm like inundated by the American.
The U.S. is a victim of its own success, and we are getting dumber.
In the process, like from medieval to now, I'm sure the responsibility rate was a lot higher back then. Whereas now,
bastardization too, right? Like you couldn't have a kid. You couldn't have a kid. And a kid couldn't inherit anything if they weren't.
Even as far back as the '60s, dude. Like women, if you had a kid and you didn't know who the father was, as a woman, like you would disappear. You go to the farm and have the kid, and nobody, then where did Susie go? Oh, she went out of state to the farm. Like they never see her again because it was such a disgrace. And now they just throw their children in the garbage can or donate their bodies to some freak show experiments.
Well, like what we were talking about last week, it's kind of like all these actions that people do in order to avoid something or to I talk about content creators, but it's just like they hurt. It's like such more of a hurt to themselves. Like maybe I'm gonna get back at the guy by throwing the baby in that he made for me, but in a much larger sense, it just harms the woman that's doing it. And it makes
hurt their mental health. Yes,
chances for infertility. It also, depending on the procedure and who's performing it, and the fact that it's federal doesn't mean it's going to be managed better. That's never exactly what that means all the time. And also, what you said, mental illness, like the idea that you just threw a kid, that you just kind of like the potential to go through a child rearing the window as easily as you brought that up. It's like nothing feels real or tangible anymore because everything is kind of like a toggle.
there is a element of utter self-hate in order for a woman to want to murder her own infant. And maybe in the process of aborting, she can kind of like feel better about herself because she's killing off that part of which she despises.
Yeah, red pill Daniels, you can actually boil the water too, and that'll kill a lot of the bacteria and parasites in it. You boil it.
So
Not that many people know that. Not that many people can actually boil.
one of the older arguments I was making before about feminism is that women don't like being women anymore. They hate the idea of being a woman. Now, being a mother, giving birth to your offspring, is as womanly in some ways as you could be, really. So if you've got such disgust or disdain towards femininity and what it means to be a woman, then in a backwards logical kind of way, it kind of makes sense why they would want to abort, because then it kind of kills off what it means for them to be a woman. It's almost like, what's the point of having a reproductive system then if you're not going to have children?
The thing is,
yeah, there's also no coming of age anymore for women for Zoomer girls, because there's like there's too much of an abundance of like, you can easily make money if you just sell your soul, and at the same time too, the amount of like having a kid doesn't set you back financially as much with all the different programs that are out there. So it doesn't feel like as much of a burden for the woman to basically just have the kid. So not having the kid, it's no responsibility. So much of a different, or it's so less like there's little impact to your decisions, to a woman's decisions whatsoever nowadays. And like they understand that, and men are like kind of angry because they've done a lot of stuff. They've screwed up in relationships too. That's why abortions exist, and that's why we have the situation that we have now with kids growing up and not really, or being raised to be like independent, or being raised to not really care about family, and then now they're like we see it in China right now. A majority of their population is bulging into like the 30 mid 30s, and they work 12 hours a day, and none of them think once about having a kid.
Yeah.
And that's happening here in America too.
Women used to be proud of their family. Now their family is like an accessory, like their earrings or something. If they have one, or really, I should say their children are like that. Less so their man, unless he's like a Chad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's no to be a provider is almost like stigmatized as a guy, because you don't need to be a provider anymore. Just like it's like the necessity is they almost make a necessity into virtue. Like the fact that women can work and make more money than men if they just try. Like it's not like they have to be exceptionally skilled in a particular area. It's just if they want to, they can.
Are you talking about the wage gap?
Yeah, if women don't want to make as much money, and they want to have kids, and they want to have a family, that's a choice. That is a choice, but it's
also been disproven countless times.
Oh, the wage gap, is a myth.
Because the argument of the argument of the wage gap is that women make a lot less money for the same job, but that's actually not true. It's that men overall make more money than women because we do the fucking more dangerous jobs that you make a lot of money doing, or the types of jobs that just generally make more money because it's higher skill, or it's with things instead of people. Women prefer to
about
work
like
with
a woman
people.
that walks into the work, into like a corporate infrastructure, and is like is making deals, and is like busting people's balls and firing people.
Let me tell you here something. I've been in the trucking industry, I'd say about 17, 18, 19, 20, maybe 5, maybe 6, 7+ years. None of these women, I've never seen a woman in flatbed. You know, I've never seen a woman in heavy haul. Actually, let me rephrase that. I've seen one woman in flatbed, zero woman in heavy haul. Okay, great. Okay, that's just one issue. Hold on.
It's like, okay, all right, okay.
Hold on. But that's just one industry. I have seen in my whole entire military career, women could have joined the infantry long before this legislation. I have seen two women in infantry, and both of them are officers. I've never seen any enlisted women. Never seen any enlisted women in infantry.
Well, despite where we see them or not, I mean, their spending habits kind of demonstrates that they're not exactly short of money, are they?
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. Is that they're willing to take risks that men aren't, because men are not able to. If they in the same industry, it's almost like the dangerous jobs are like the last bastion, like men to have a decent living without like feeling like they're tormented, like having sort of setting up a psychic distance between what's really going on. Because in reality, a woman can just walk right into a job and make just as much or make more money, because she's willing to fill out the applications and do the interviews and do this, have the social skills to move up. Whereas a guy is gonna do this, or he's gonna do he's gonna do
You're also talking about money
occupied with something, and he's going to be saving money, and but he's not going to be trying to you know, he's not going to be trying to conquer or dominate something. When you think of a dirty job or a dangerous job, it's not about the conquest of or getting the hard task done. It's just that there's so much of a labor shortage. If women are just as active in the workplace as men, you would see flatbed, heavy haul, and infantry, and all these different male dominated jobs being inundated with an equal like female population. But it's more like I don't think that you'd be remiss to train a woman on how to do your job, and I'm not sure that there isn't a woman out there that's built for that job, to be able to do that job efficiently. But they only after the CEO positions,
right?
And Instagram model.
So getting bogged down into the details is part of the game, because now you're having to defend yourself, and that takes you away from the crux of the problem, which is basically at a fundamental kind of level. Women are greedy. Women are selfish. They want it all. They don't want any responsibility. And what you're just discussing here with like job opportunities, pay gap, discrimination, so-called, wanting abortion, and all this sort of stuff, it all kind of falls under this selfish mentality, this spoilt entitlement.
Yeah, like remote job. It's one of the more selfish.
They'll never be happy.
And wise things that a person, not wise, but like physically with your body, like a smart decision you could make is to like work from home as opposed to going to the office. But at men, we see a rise in men taking that option, but a lot of men feel like they have like that servile attitude where they would rather show up at a place even if they don't really do work. They just delegate out responsibilities to people, but they like being in that environment, the work environment. But you see more people, women, rushing away into the work from home, because then they can have their accessories, they can have in the form of kids and a boyfriend, and they can have all these different things, and they don't have to sacrifice anything.
You're bringing
and going to work.
There's a slight tangent.
My phone's gonna die, but I will be back.
All right, we'll hold down the fort. Get back.
All right.
All right. You touched on an interesting point there, Baron, where as women have become more and more, as a result of their privilege, and transferring blame and responsibility, they become more and more lazy, and so men have had to kind of pick up the slack where women have been lazy. And this might be a bit of a fault of the man, where he has become more of a servant, arguably, in today's time than he's ever been. He's always bending the knee and having to give in and tolerate and put up with. So he's filling in the gap of being of service to others, which, you know, is kind of like a dog chasing its tail. So if men are becoming more docile and providing more service, then it lets women off the hook that much more. So for example, if a woman if she wanted to turn around and be like, okay, I'm going to be of service now, it's like a man would be like, don't worry about it, I've got it covered. You're not really any use anymore. It's like the argument of what do you bring to the table? It's like it doesn't really matter because a man has it pretty much covered in all departments. He can cook for himself, he can clean for himself, he can hold down the house.
Manage
He
his
don't
own.
need you anymore. You've made yourself.
And that's the thing that TFM, Tico, and many others have always echoed on the channel, and others is just if a man can get what he needs without a woman, and he can get companionship and food, and he can get
Right.
even through buying a sex doll if that's what he wants. It's like if he can get all that stuff, and it's a chore, it's a task, it's a difficult living situation to cope to get those things. Even so, barring all the difficulty, if he can set his life up for success without even bringing a woman into the question, and he can get his interaction with women at a workplace by what you said, like doing a quote unquote chivalrous act, or helping them out, or just being there, just being or just approaching groups of women at work and being an asshole. If he can do that, he can get all of his social needs met. Then why does he need to like bring a one into his home,
Right.
start a family,
Right.
do the
It's down to the point like all she's good for is some panani.
resources, and like for a woman to have more resources, and for a man to still feel inclined in this day and age to make that first move, it's like, as a woman you wouldn't make that same decision. Like you wouldn't approach a guy and ask him out on a date because fear of rejection, whereas a guy, he doesn't see that. He sees somebody with more power, more money, more social skills, and so he wouldn't feel naturally, he's not going to feel like approaching that person. He's going to seek it elsewhere.
Well, she's without much awareness, she's rendered herself obsolete in her pursuit of having it all and wanting like the career path, degrees, and high position jobs. She's devalued herself. Whereas before in the past, I mean, she could have argued like, well, look, she's the one that looks after the house, and washing the clothes and cooking dinner and serving is a laborious task, and men would be none the wiser, and men were none the wiser, and they would have been like, yeah, running a home must be an ordeal. Thank goodness I've got a wife at home or something like that. But now that men have had to kind of forced into a position where it's like, well, I'm going to have to look after the house myself, that quite a lot of the time the men are surprised because they're like, damn, this ain't actually that hard. This is kind of easy. I mean, you just put the clothes in the washing machine, press a few buttons, and it does the job. What is it these women are complaining about?
And it's like, and it's funny you said that too, because yeah, if left to their own devices, a man's hormonal like regulation only leads to just more like clarity. And it's funny that you have these radicalized people that are raised by single mothers who end up committing all these acts because they've been, without pressing the buttons and throwing the clothes into the washing machine, they're told that it's such a laborious process, and that your dad left us to do laundry and dishes and he never decided to help us, and that's why, you know, men suck and women won't ditch you and you'll be good eventually, and all this stuff that women say to their kids to appease them and to get them to not see the, like what Wynn said, see the hand in front of their face. It's like they want to basically make your job as a man seem so insignificant that you don't even bother trying to take care of yourself or do the quote unquote wifely duties for yourself. But I still say once you do, it's kind of like it gives you more, like I said, it gives you more clarity, and it just gives you a deeper appreciation for life when you actually take care of yourself and do all these different things yourself. So when it's like when it comes to women, their hormones and they're in the workplace and they want to find that man, so they go into the rabbit hole, they jump in there, whereas like as a guy, you are working and some like beautiful or cute or very sweet or kind or gentle or loving or caring, some girl like falls into your lap or something and you decide to like take that opportunity. It's a different thing for women when they go into a workplace. They are going into the belly of the beast, as it were. They are being they're actually biting off it more than they can chew and borrowing trouble.
Exactly, yeah. And so what is pushing them further into that problem really is there'll probably be like a sense of pride, but what this pride is really is their sense of shame. So they're trying to prove their self-worth but failing, and this is making them more and more bitter and scornful, and so because they realize there's no point now trying to return back to the household environment. They lost that battle. Men have found out for themselves that it's not actually that hard. In fact, it's probably a lot easier, because you look how messy a woman's bathroom is, all the
I'm back, but I got 4%. But could you give me a few minutes before my phone dies?
Yeah, do what you got to do, man.
All right. There was a class system, where of a household class. The second they, whether you believe it or not, the second they allowed women into the workforce and full steam ahead, disrupted that balance, and when it disrupted the balance, it turned into we went from the middle class, upper middle class, whatever, into the working poor, even to the working rich and the working poor. The second we entered the working poor scenario, there's this thing that I've mentioned it before called financial castration. These men were castrated financially to where, and then it turned into an emotional castration. It evolved into emotional castration. Women want only the tip-top percent. A lot of these women want people with at least a 5-6 figure income, but yet they don't have to do anything they don't want to do anything for it. They want somebody to either exceed their income. It's like a competition. And being that it is a competition now, men typically do not want to be competing in their own households. So this balance is thrown off. Me being a single man with no children.
Yeah, I mean that's why abortion is a thing now, because a woman goes from being alone and destitute to being having everything all at once, and so she needs to slow down and still. Oh yeah, well, exactly. And it's like she has everything at once and also cannot properly manage or mitigate the consequences of having everything at once. Whereas like if a guy starts in an entry level position, moves into a management, goes back to school, comes back, he builds by brick to a place where if he gets hit with a hard rock like pregnancy, he's like not thinking, let me just tear this all down and start over.
Right. And the thing is like it threw off the balance. And now fast forward, we're looking at nobody's having children, nobody's getting married, and people are steadily being denied of any type of affection. You know, and the thing is, another thing is like, if there's no working class, if it's just the working poor, guess who? Nobody's making money, including the rich. You know, nobody's making money, including the rich. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yes, it's the hard manual labor, but guess what? If you have no workers, you don't get paid. You don't get paid. Your product does not get made. Your product does not get moved. Your product does not get bought. If without the working class citizen, and being a working class citizen or the working poor is now vilified.
Yeah, like you can't be working poor and also work from home, because
right.
you need experience in order to be able to to administrate from a remote location, and you only get that experience through going into
out there into the world.
Learning every aspect of the job. If you're not learning every aspect of the job and you're working remotely, are you really doing your job properly?
There's only so much you can learn from behind a computer screen, and most of it's not even basically learned. Most of it's basically, hey Billy, Bob, Billy, Joel, John, John, do you have the answers for this question? Do you have the answers for this Quizlet, this quiz? And they just basically call and basically get the answers to cheat without learning.
Yeah, and so I guess it's following a trend where it's like, where it's going to hurt in order to learn the process, it's much more easy to just like rip the band-aid off and go for an easier alternative, rather than having to suffer the consequences of the decision or lack thereof to increase your knowledge of your domain, whatever it is, your field or your education, wherever it is that, and his phone probably just died. But yeah, it's just, I think it's just maybe just taking the statistic or taking the data point of the birth rate and trying to explore it and look into it more is something that men get shamed for, because it's not our jurisdiction. It's like, oh, we notice we're trying to make an arrest in like a place where it's not our this town ain't big enough for the two of us. But it's like, it's funny because, okay, we can't help with the birth control or the child rearing process, or else we'll get labeled a creep or we just get late. We're out of pocket, because we're talking about female issues. But they can kind of define what a high value man is. They can make those kinds of decisions.
You as a man, you're not allowed to have preferences, but women,
your baby is not high value
preferences
to keep.
Yeah, your baby's not. Yeah, actually, that's pretty good.
It's just statement. Like they're almost like a corrupt sheriff or something. It's like they are the law.
I like how you said that though. Your baby's not high value enough to keep.
Well, that's they want to create a divide. They want to create a separation, whereas like a woman's son is a product of his father.
Well, are you familiar with the woman's, what do you call it? The woman's life cycle. There's different stages, like the party years, the epiphany phase. You're familiar with any of that? The wall, yes.
The wall. I just know about she can't spell feminism.
Well, they want what I'm getting at is they want the party years to last as long as possible. So they're trying to stretch that out, and having a kid is going to, of course, if a woman has a kid at like 25, party years are done. It's pretty much over.
Yeah,
like they're heading for the wall a lot sooner because that does a number on them.
So with this thing of high value men, or the party years often end early for a high value man because he's on his purpose. Whereas like you see the women that they consider that they consider high value, they're chasing peace leave while working in a corporate job or something like that. You
Yeah.
know, they're chasing that pocket, that white pocket, you know, and it's just they're and then to them, to most ignorant women, it's just like those guys are high value. They have all the money, but also they spend all their time trying to lay down the pipe.
Mhm.
So it's just like, whoa, so you're gonna have that person's baby, and then it's just like that person's baby getting aborted is like you want to. I don't really feel sympathy for, well, I get it from a biological thing. Like I do deeply like mourn for a kid that goes through that. But at the same time, like screw him, or you know, he wants to make decisions with they all you lay with dogs, you get up with fleas. You know, that's nobody really uses that
Yeah.
saying
It's
anymore.
personal responsibility. You know, just like we were talking about earlier, right? With the mass shooter guy. Now, your personal protection is also your responsibility. It actually is not the police's responsibility. There was a Supreme Court case about that, but you are responsible for your own safety. Uh, and so, personally, I take my safety uh, into great consideration, which is why I'm always carrying and I know how to, use my firearms. But I do have many years of experience and military experience. But that's, any normal person can get some training and some practice and be efficient at, handling their firearms. And, if there were, I always say it, if there were people who were capable of, who were carrying and were capable of using their firearms effectively, that guy wouldn't have gotten so many people. But because New York State it's not very common. If there's probably very few people that are even carrying at all, and like the state which I reside in, which you pretty much have to assume about everybody's carrying. So so that's where people are going to be more victimized with places that have more strict gun control. But
And
getting back to my point, it's your responsibility to keep
it's a
yourself
personal decision.
safe. It's
It's a personal
not the
decision
fucking
where you
popo.
live. The personal decision deciding where you live. It's a personal decision deciding where you sleep. It's a
Exactly.
personal decision, how sore your legs are after a night of
Yep.
the, horizontal tangoing.
Uh,
It's like,
but see, you chose, and getting back to that, you chose all those things. You choose all of those things, and then you have to take responsibility for your decisions. That's how life works as an adult.
and like you said, as an adult, right?
Yes.
But like I was getting at earlier, like a woman will always blame the actions of his son on the sins of the father. You know, it's never
Yeah.
her decision, and also a man's never going to like what Billy said in the workplace, never going to let a woman pick up a heavy box if he can't physically help it. If it is if he's used up his asshole points for the day on delegating out something, he's going to be a gentleman. He's gonna say, you know what? Despite the fact I had a baby with this woman, and despite the fact that she spent all this money, she did this, that, and the other, she called me out my name, she blamed me for this, she cheated on me, this, that, and the other. I take personal accountability for picking that woman and laying with that woman in the first place. He's always going to do that. And you have the black manosphere who wants to leverage more or less the fact that they're black in other countries in the hopes that this is like somehow going to alleviate that feeling of that burden of guilt of laying down with somebody that you don't intend to have like a long-term relationship with, which I think is just, it's very just asinine. Call me jealous, call me bitter, whatever have you. I don't really crave the affection of a woman like in the submission of a woman as much as I think of some men in the black manosphere do. You guys don't if you guys want to weigh in on that, feel free. But that's just my personal opinion. A submission is in peace and wanting a woman to be your peace and stuff. It's not necessary.
It doesn't lead anywhere good.
Yeah, it's one moment there, it's a peace, and the next moment it's a knife in your back. And not only that is that you can't what's the right way to say this without saying, you can't really trust other people not to get involved in your relationship nowadays. So despite the fact that you might have her submitting to you, someone could see that as you're abusing her, and
There's always there will be a Karen, her friend Karen, getting in her ear like, you shouldn't do that. You can do better. Like, you know, that's not unheard of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also when she breaks up with you, she's been macho trained to be submissive. So now the next guy is who doesn't care about the word no and doesn't care about respecting her or getting respect from her and this, that, and the other, and doesn't have red pill manosphere wisdom and stuff. He's just gonna roll right over her. And it's basically you're making the problem worse, but you're just getting a good chunk. You're just experiencing the good part of it, and then you're throwing the rest. It's almost like an abortion, and pumping and dumping is almost like an abortion in and of itself, because you're just saying like, oh yeah, I'm not going to take responsibility. And shout out to the guys that actually protect themselves from a situation, or consciously are trying to avoid bad situations, but trying to lure women in with alcohol, with booze, or with weed, or with fancy cars or trucks, or a talent, or career prospects or relationship prospects even, that you intend to fully fill up on or fulfill. It's like you get to take a little bit of accountability too. That's just my opinion. It's not the main part of the topic, although it could be, but men got to really take accountability for that stuff too, because otherwise we wouldn't be talking about this topic of abortion. Everybody would be Sir so-and-so and lady this of the river of such and such, and everybody would be landed and happy and, you know, bountiful. But it's not what we have anyway. There would be a collective larger amount of coats being thrown onto puddles in front of women, and it's not anymore. It's like, and it's weird too, because street sweepers and technology and all this stuff and automatic door openers, it's like we're not, even if we try, we're the only way you can really be chivalrous is to go out of your actual way. Typically, like, chivalry is like, I was like studying the knight orders and then whatever, the holy orders and whatever, and it's like typically chivalry is like a code when you're already in battle.
Yeah, it was never meant to.
But when it comes to like courting and dating nowadays, it's almost like you have to decide to go into battle to then be able to fulfill the knight code and stuff. But it's no one's really warring or something, or everybody is 10 times as powerful as you. So
well,
it's like,
it got twisted to benefit women. But originally, it was like, yeah, man, like don't like run a guy through while he's on the shitter, you know, with your sword. Like,
yeah, it was like,
you know, at least
be respectful.
Challenge him like a man to a one-on-one fight and shit like that. I mean, that was originally the sort of thing that chivalry was supposed to be, and then they turned it into what modern society thinks it was.
Yeah, it's not supposed to cost anything out of your personal integrity. It's not supposed to like compromise who you are, who you think you are, in order to please somebody else. It's supposed to be like, this is coming from a deep rooted sense to me. That's why I don't like the word. I don't really like throwing the word simp around like willy-nilly, because in reality, like a lot of that stuff that people get blamed for as being a simp is like, it's not authentically who that person is. Like, that person's in like the honeymoon phase or something, or they're really enthralled by a woman. So it's not like a guy is intrinsically a simp. It's like you can have, it's like when we were talking about pettiness before. You're not necessarily a petty person or petty in a broad sense, but you can be coerced into behaving that way, especially if you have something to gain socially from acting petty or for acting like a simp.
Let me. I'm explaining this to you here. In order to, yeah, I'm back. The thing about simps, all they're doing is basically trying to deal with somebody who has a false sense of value, you know. And who do they typically try to attract? Well, person with is basically the person with a false sense of value, typically are women, right? First off, they were stripped of their true value and given a false sense, and that is what caused that is like the false sense of value. Is basically a value that was basically they were told that you're not valuable unless you do this, unless you wear this, unless you put this on, And the thing is that now it's an unhealthy sense of value,
Yeah, Tico always talks about it too. Why would you want to start a business in a deficit? Why would you want to choose a woman that you have to train off the bat? Or why would you want to have to put on a certain amount of clothes, certain costs before even, like, it's not even good stuff to invest in.
Why would you want to sleep with a freaking lion?
If I could win the love of a woman by like investing 5 cents in oranges stock every month, then it would be so much easier because it makes logical sense with what I'm financially capable of doing, and it also is something that seen as like a smart decision in the long term. But the only way that I can really get her to notice anything about me or even be interested is if I buy the 11s, or if I buy the Gucci flip flops, or if I have like a nice chain, or the not the Celtic cross, but like the big Catholic cross chains, with like the diamonds and the gold and stuff. It's like that's the only thing that they respect. They don't respect like smart financial decisions. And not even because there's gonna be a bunch of women coming out. Yeah, I'm full of shit. I make good investments. I make good decisions, and yeah, they are the exception and not the rule. And also, like, kind of when it comes to women like gaining status and jumping down the rabbit hole of corporate infrastructure and learning all of these best practices, how to diversify the portfolio, how is that making them into like a better mother, if that's what they want eventually? It's just going to make them look at their kids as having to be just as much of like a magnanimous absolver.
They look at their kids as parasites as it is.
Like my kid has to be even better than I was as a. Imagine if she had a son, and she put all of these expectations onto him, and he just wanted to be really hyper focused and specialize on one thing. And he couldn't do anything else right. Like he couldn't do anything else provisionally, like a normal human being like eventually does. They specialize, or they kind of get the jack of all trades, but they are good at one thing or get good at something. But to be like a high status person, it takes so much resources that how can you even like have a life? And so like to raise a kid without that experience or that love of getting as much quality time out of life as possible, it makes it so that she sees this as an alternative option. Instead of trying to raise this kid in this environment, and might as well just get rid of it. Also, you hear a lot too, like the pandemic. it's such a dangerous time to bring a kid into the world. And meanwhile, you got people who are like still procreating, albeit irresponsibly during the pandemic. And then you got people who are like using it as an excuse not to. And then abortion gets thrown into the mix here now with like Roe v. Wade. So it's like, which side are people on primarily when it comes to like their view of the world? And depending on the circumstances, I'm okay letting somebody use a form of birth control, like as long as they're grounded and rooted and are thinking critically about something, and they can they're understanding a situation. They should be able to pursue whatever path they see fit.
My thing
Most of
is,
going down the path of like advocating for abortion, they don't really make the best decisions in general. So they're a bad compass for morality.
right. But the thing is, here's what I see in this situation. It's here.
Give it to me.
Yeah. The fact of the matter that it was put in play, it's here. It was it was put in action for years on end. There's literally nothing you can do without. Then there's basically there are people split on two sides. One's for it, one's for against it. There's no way you can do anything with this without getting some sort of backlash. There's no way you can get into something about this without receiving backlash and that being the end of your life, your career. That's the thing.
That's why like doxing was such a big deal in the manosphere, because it's not like everybody who makes content has a right to not be doxed, and like it's like this overarching thing. It's like some people who are red pill men were operating like behind enemy lines or in close proximity with women and were afraid of their ideas being expressed. So like they had to kind of to say that person shouldn't be doxxed is almost taking responsibility away from them for their decisions. It's taking away, it's kind of like steamrolling or bulldozing over all the intricate things that go into speaking out publicly about a situation that has gravitas. Because like to anonymize that person makes it so that, yeah, I can appreciate it and I can glean and I can like exploit and mooch as much information off of this anonymous person as possible to help my own life. But where does that actually like reflect out into the larger, like the bigger picture? Like the only way I can multiply the impact of this, because this person refuses to be known publicly or have any sort of record, or they're running fast away from that reality. It's like, how do I actually apply this in a way, this exact, I almost have to transform it into my own thing, which makes it less valuable because I'm dealing with my own credibility. And then at that point, what am I really getting? This seems like a waste of time to be focused on somebody else who wants to like maintain this credibility at the cost of being anonymous. So it's just like, how do you
just got to eat more like chicken?
I have this. This is my mentality. Just because you have the information does not mean that you have to use the information or display the information. Because men at one point had this thing called honor, whether it was amongst other fellow gentlemen, whether it was amongst thieves, whether it was amongst soldiers, whether it was amongst whatever, we had a sense of honor. And and even the manosphere was the last vestige where honor was. And when people in the manosphere began doxing,
Yeah.
that honor is gone. That honor is forever gone. We have now become just like the rest of the world.
That's right. I like that word. But yeah,
We-
I do. I mean, honor plays a significant role in a man's ability to express himself, because there's not many like modern conventions where a guy feels manly that don't involve that, like what you said, like either service or some level of like respect among men, like tacit respect among men. Because in the intelligentsia and in all these institutions, we have to make speeches in order to show our respect for one another and make like have grandiose displays. But there's still the day after where you're stabbed in the back, or you get your secrets you're blackmailed, they're emotionally, you're hamstrung into having to waste time appeasing people. And if we really honored one another, we wouldn't bother with this stuff. That's why when it comes like the abortion debate and feminism, they want the honor. That's what they really want. But they were not willing to, and they think that comes through like the lethargy of like every day picking little individual processes to have power and domain over, like a woman's reproductive system, or a man's his alcohol intake, or his weed intake, or his consumption of online pornography. And like everything can be regulated, everything can have, we can all feel extremely powerful in our own little world if we can, as long as we can know that everyone else is doing the right thing. It's like that's the society that we live in now. There's no way for me to like just join an organization and like being doxxed is almost viewed, I don't know what sect views it this way, but it's almost like, oh, ha ha ha, busting your balls, sharing your home address, lol.
right, and that's the problem, and that's the problem is you never know who's going to disagree, the type of person that's going to disagree, because now, like, look at certain people in the manosphere. What happens when they show their face? Their whole career is ruined. Their whole life is ruined in some places, in some cases. Like, especially if they don't have the.
Well, that's the thing too, though, and I get it, but it's like, how much of a life did you have if you show your face based on what you say, it all comes crumbling and crashing down? Like what type of life is that to live, where if you even just share, what's the point of getting yourself to a high position if you can ruin it so easily? Because like look at somebody like who shows their face now, whose life isn't completely ruined.
Right, but the thing is like, who typically is in HR? Like, men typically don't have the backing of a company of John from down the street from my childhood home, where
they're also not obligated to desecrate the institution of marriage over the tables at lunch and shame somebody else for being a simp. They're not like, men don't have to participate in this kind of behavior as well, which also is not like grounds for them being doxxed, but for their lives being ruined. I mean, it's kind of like you pick it's like a stupid game that guys play where they think that they can just say, I mean, I get telling it like it is, but some guys go too far. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, because I go a little too far when I tell it like it is.
Yeah, but then like with people like you, I mean, you can still maintain living. You're not going to be like, Well, you haven't been doxxed yet, though. But like that's the thing. If you still say crazy stuff, but it's the way you carry yourself is what I'm trying to say. It's the way that the way that you carry yourself. You can say the things that you want to say because it comes from your heart, and you still can, man. You can carve out this thing. You can't have this because you already ruined it by being authentic. So, but build yourself into a person that doesn't desire that, and that way you won't have to abort your whole entire life because of a thought that you had or a tweet that you had, and
or my life is forcibly aborted.
yeah, or somebody removes you. Yeah, like plenty of times there's like the guy at the club that sees a couple arguing and he has to step in and save the woman, but then he like in turn damn near murders a guy and gets sent to jail too for attempted murder or manslaughter or something. Like it's like you just made the situation 10 times worse by trying to help. I think that's
usually you needlessly get yourself killed. That's how that usually works.
Going outside, leaving outside with a woman that you cohabitate with that sees your stains in your underwear. You don't want a person like that standing next to you in public. It's like that's what people don't understand. That's why people get themselves into stupid situations, is because they're like, somebody who cleans my mold. Yeah, I would like to go shopping with them. It's like they're not going to respect you in public because they have to do that stuff for you. And I mean, maybe it's just common sense and that never occurs to people, but they think that they can maintain their dominance in the face of a woman who has seen, the naked backside. Yeah, it's like how none of that stuff has ever been. I've never tried to argue that with somebody like, oh yes, no, trust me. If she, if she sees me talk with my mouth full every night, she's still going to want to treat me with respect, and she's not going to be trying to throw me in the bus in public, in front of my in-laws and in front of, on public television and the kiss cam or something. She's not going to she'll because that's it's like no one wants to be that guy that goes for the kiss on the kiss cam and it gets rejected, so I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but it just seems like the abortion topic led me to start thinking about how men and women make decisions to be together, and to the point where there's no peaceful way to solve the situation. Like it pretty much begets a violent end, if you catch my drift. It's like all this stuff leads to a tragedy. And it's almost like if you try to help, you're just going to get dragged into it. How many people tried to reach out to get Peyton or whatever his name is? And how many people are affected by this now because they know about him, they tried to help, and it didn't work?
Probably almost, to answer your question, probably almost nobody. What people do instead these days is like, oh, that guy's a weirdo, and that's it. Like, then they avoid him, and end of that.
Speaking of which, did you know that you could actually get arrested for being a weirdo in certain parts of the country?
Him being accepted, by society, would that have prevented what happened?
Like literally, you could be if you walked out. I mean, there was a man that got arrested for having strange eyes, wearing oversized clothes, and walking funny and slowly down the street.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah.
You can actually be arrested for being a weirdo. Which is sad.
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything.
But it's not. This guy was a weirdo. Yeah, I will agree. But he didn't walk funny. He didn't have big eyes, and he wore clothes that fit. And why? I mean, if to do this implies he has no empathy, no emotions, but why would it functionally it makes sense to blend in with society, but also like as a human you would desire that and to be accepted and stuff like that, and then for him to it's almost like there's a group for everything. There's a fake group for everything if you can't find a real group for something. So why why refuse all of that just for individuality's sake? How much do you really want to go crazy being an individual in all cases and try to permutate and become the sole person that is like you, when it's like it's just so costly to your psyche and your mental, your mental evaluate. If you can't handle it, like somebody just needs to step in and tell a person like, hey man, you can't be that much of an individual. At some point you have to blend, you have to like conform to society for your own mental health. I mean, don't conform to like a toxic part of society until you're really like you're really inoculated or have strong boundaries to interact with it.
The
But
thing is,
that's I don't know.
These guys like that guy have groups. They're online, but they do have groups. That being said, it is proven isolation for most people. Some people are just built to be in isolation. Their mind is different than most of us who are social creatures. But yeah, it's proven that you will go insane. That's what will drive you insane is being isolated eventually.
oh, excuse me.
Yeah, and I guess there's not really a reason to communicate very like immediately, because you can just type what your thought into a search engine and get tons of information. Like part of communication is like uncertainty avoidance and financial uncertainty, and it's like leading cause of breakups and divorces. And it's the fact that two people can't communicate about certain things, and they like what we were saying earlier, rely on their friends and places of validation. Our places of validation are more important than actually the fulfillment of communicating with a partner and developing clarity in a relationship, because it takes being vulnerable, it takes acknowledging you have a mistake and that you're wrong, and it's much more easy to abort that relationship and go back to your friends who will always agree with you and tell you that you're made a good decision.
Basically saying that you're a good boy.
And they're like, I break up with it and I go and I say,
you did nothing wrong.
Like, well, you fucked up here, here, and here.
Yeah, no, I've been that guy. I've been that guy to my friends before too.
Yeah, and it's like everybody needs a guy like that. They can't just go to their guys who are like, dude, it's totally fine, bro. Like, just forget about her. Let's go out. Go out tonight. Let's find something else.
Let's go to the strip club, bro.
Throw some, dude. I just cashed out. Got my $1,400 from Biden. Let's go blow this.
Biden bucks, man.
But yeah, that was 2 hours. So that was appreciate everybody coming to the stream. But we're gonna sort of start to end it here. Everybody can do their final closing thoughts. But I'll just say, and then I'll just kind of roll the outro. But everybody take care of yourselves and treat yourself like milk. Do nothing but spoil yourself. And always strive to be the better version of yourself. If it takes working on it to a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, and then like always be willing to acknowledge when you made a bad decision and move on from it and just try to do better. Don't try to backpedal that decision that you made in the past, or pit people against the other people to try to get them to forget about the decision that you made, and just take accountability. That's what I like and that's what I'm moving forward with. But yeah, anybody else got any closing thoughts?
Wind.
No.
When I hear you want to say something.
Basically, in order to be an individual, you have to basically have a mindset.
You basically have to do other people's stuff. Like in order to be it's paradoxical, but in order to be an individual, you have to learn from other people and make it your own. You have to learn from others.
Learn from others. Basically, learn from others, like Yam said, and basically take their lessons but make them a part of your life. But don't, like I said, sometimes you have to interact with the crowd. And when you have to do that, encroach to at a safe distance, close enough to observe, and do your own judgment on whether or not this is the crowd you want to interact with, or should you go find another crowd before you even take the step to get closer. Because as soon as you get closer, that crowd's going to notice. And they're going to want to invite you in.
Well said. Billy, you got anything to add before I get this Kush outro music?
Control your sexual fetishes. Don't let them control you.
All right. Well,
you
nice.
Kinky devils, you guys are.
If you have to wear a chastity belt,
yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, wear that.
Be liberal with the gorilla glue.
Throw the key away on that chest.
throw the key away. Yeah, just quit.
So I say, don't cave on this abortion shit, guys. I know it's not really up to us, but just remember what abortion is really about instead of what people are saying it's about. And ultimately, it's simply responsibility. People don't want to take responsibility. And of course, primarily, it's about hypergamy. It's about being able to, actuate hypergamy. And hypergamy, it's a feature, not a bug, but at the same time, unrestrained hypergamy is how we got where we're at right now. That's why the red pill exists. So don't forget that.
That's a good point. If you want to experience hypergamy, just play all Bethesda games from start to finish, and you destroyed that shot.
Hey, you leave Skyrim alone.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm an Imperial. Like I unironically choose to be an Imperial.
I prefer the Stormcloaks.
Skyrim's the shit. Yeah, the Stormcloaks. Hell yeah. Skyrim's for the Nords.
Yes, it is. Anyways, guys, I want you guys to have a good night out. Driving. If you're flying, try to fly right. That's all I got.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Perfections, ooh, Sin City, Montana, Coke boy, ooh, we run the city, homie tryna keep up, ooh, they going broke, I'll finish your career, ooh, get a rope,
Warning, 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 warning.
Dope money, ooh,
That Montega.
in the spot, getting guap, ooh,
That's hard labor.
in the club, popping bottles,
Yeah, we blowing that sour.
hand for the real niggas,
Rest of these niggas cowards.
how you want it,
How you want it?
hands gun or the knife,
Soon as your man see the barrel,
he gon' run for his life,
bullets flying.
bullets